got some good news for you. Hey, everybody, gather near. The doctor's in the house, so lend him your ear. The things he can say might even make your day. He might even help your pain go away. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house. Doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the doctor is in the house. This is Dr. Ron, host of Dr. Ron Unfiltered, Uncensored, with episode 460. Thank you, everybody, and I do have an attitude of gratitude, especially during this special time of the year of Thanksgiving. It looks like everybody remembers to be grateful for what they have. I've talked about gratefulness for years now, and you can measure the effect of gratefulness in the hormones that are released in our body, the happiness and love hormones. But let's try and carry that on throughout the whole year, okay? Have an attitude of gratitude, and let's all try and do something good every day. And I'm grateful for all the people that have been tuning into our abbreviated, 30-minute or so podcast. And last week with diet soda. So I hope you are not drinking that stuff that makes you die, gives you strokes and heart attacks. And if you're drinking hot coffee, maybe you took my advice and checked me out that the plastic lining of those cups is carcinogenic. We don't want to get cancer. We want to have a lot of life in these years we want to live. And we have to be the CEO of our own bodies. We have to question everything. And we have to listen to our bodies. A good CEO listens to his or her employees. We have to listen to our bodies. So it's a two-way street. So Thursday night, ladies and gentlemen, I was interviewed on a health channel that is operated by Roku Television. It's a streaming service. I was interviewed by Dr. Jerry Smith, who some of you may know was a co-host of my program for many years. And we talked on frequency medicine, energy medicine. And as soon as I get the link, I'll do a quick podcast or send it out to those that have asked for it on the docronradio@gmail.com, docronradio@gmail.com. And we had an interesting dialogue. We covered a lot of material. I'm just going to cover some of it today. And if you have questions, and we'll go further into energy medicine or frequency healing. And why? Because as I've been telling you for a long time, medicine is the third leading cause of death, and and even add in a couple 100,000 deaths from drugs every year. Properly prescribed medication. Our lifespan is decreasing. I mean, can you believe that? Lifespan decreasing in this country, and over 80% of people over 65 have some kind of chronic disease. I mean, do you think medicine is really doing its job? We have an epidemic, or even somebody they'll call it a pandemic, of chronic diseases. And the majority of people who died from COVID had 4 comorbidities, 4 chronic diseases. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, immune dysfunctions, drug addictions, digestive conditions are out of control. But we're not given options. We have the old AMA program of you have disease X, you get drug Y. And we have to remember 92+% of our genes are epigenetic, which means lifestyle changes lifestyle modifications can change the expression of those genes. You're not controlled by your genes. Only between 5 and 8% of them that we can't control. So we have to, as being CEOs, have to demand options so we don't get into this paradigm of chronic conditions. 80% of adults have chronic conditions: high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, arthritis, high cholesterol, made up disease, coronary heart disease, Alzheimer's and dementia, 11%. Anxiety and depression, 42%. And others. So we need a change. We definitely need a change. We spend so much money in this country, more than any other developed country, in medical care. Yet, in mortality, morbidity, we rank near the bottom. If you were the CEO of your company, you spent a lot of money, and you were last in outcome, would you not want to start firing people? There are a few providers that are getting frustrated, but most of them are just, 84% of physicians are employed, so they can't get too frustrated or they'll lose their job. They have to toe the line. But there are evidence-based solutions that can reverse these chronic diseases by lifestyle changes. If lifestyle was a medicine, the docs would all be prescribing it. So that's part of what we're talking about today. The electricity in your body. Your body has its own magnetic field. It's made up of, 100 trillion cells, and it has trillions of mitochondria more. Every cell has millions of mitochondria. They're the engines, the energy engines of our body. And these 100 trillion cells are powered by what? Electrical energy. And a person that has good health has a charge of 70 to 100 millivolts. Aging, stress, poor diet, or the environment can reduce that voltage. And we know that a person with low voltage is more likely to suffer from illnesses and cancer. Cancer patients have voltages of like 15 millivolts. And as I just told my grandson, who's in medical school, consider the fact that the heart generally does not get cancer, for good reason, because it's the most positively charged organ of your body. Think about that. So we have to take care of ourselves, CELLS, and ourselves, both. But we have to be conscious of the food we eat, the oxygen we breathe, the people we associate with. We have to be concerned with electrons, because they get stored in our mitochondria and provide the spark for our cells to keep going. And if you don't have that spark, your cells die. If enough cells die, what happens? Your organs don't function properly, and you get some kind of chronic disease. Just like your car, without the proper fuel, without energy, it doesn't function properly. And that's where frequency or energy medicine comes in. It's been around for a long, long time, but it's sort of been overshadowed by biochemistry, which suppresses symptoms and puts a Band-Aid on the symptoms, and infrequently, I should say. It infrequently gets to the cause, to the root of the problem. Nutrition is part of the answers, but it also deals with the body's chemistry. And it is very important for overall wellness, but it doesn't go deep enough to get the job done. If you really want to get to the root cause of problems, you have to provide energy to the body and make sure it's used correctly. And believe it or not, everything else then will fall into place. Einstein said that matter and energy are interchangeable, and therefore our bodies are energy. And our bodies are in a state of regeneration, continual regeneration. A continual process of cell turnover, life and death. And that's without it, the body wouldn't exist. And at some point, we'll talk about senolytics, the chemicals that help the body get rid of those dying and dead cells. And it's a good thing, because cells die, they get old, and then they're replaced by new cells, more energy. But if we're not well, our regenerative processes don't work properly. The degenerative ones work better. They wear us down. And that's where sometimes medication might be of benefit. If we fall too much into the degenerative side, it could nudge us back into balance. But then we have to quickly get into balance with our foods, our herbs, our nutrition, our nutrients, and our healing energies. And we have to always remember that the drug-based medications that use chemicals have no regenerative potential. They almost always interfere with the body renewing itself while it's suppressing the symptoms. And just remember, and you're probably one of the 80% of adults who have at least one chronic condition. Most of us have low energy and fatigue. But you know what? A blood test isn't going to solve that answer. Unless you're really out of balance with a bad thyroid or have hormonal disruptions. We have to do a bioenergy diagnosis. We have to see where the energy levels are blocked. When you think of acupuncture, which has been an energy form of healing for centuries, and you think of the meridians, the lines you see over displays of the human anatomy, think of them as an energy grid. And when a spot on that energy grid gets blocked, it can be measured with today's instruments, but an acupuncturist can feel it, can test it, and put his needles in the correct spots and get that energy flowing again. And that's what energy medicine does for us. Our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual bodies get moving and with this energy. I got to say, I'm seeing more and more conferences on energy medicine. I think people are really fed up with the old patterns of going to your physician, getting medications on a regular basis, and no talk about lifestyle. No talk about frequencies, vibrations. Every organ in our body, every bone in our body, every tissue in our body are vibrating. And when it's all vibrating like a symphony orchestra in harmony, we're healthy. But when there's something out of tune, a violin, a viola, and we start setting ourselves for disharmony or what we call dis-ease. And again, like high voltage is healthy, high energy, high frequencies are healthy, low frequencies are not. So there are a lot of healers today using frequency healing tools to get this orchestra playing together again. So there are lots of ways to do this. And one thing that's really important is to, before we get into the using the frequencies, is make sure we're hydrated properly. And we all have to know that our cells are 90 some plus percent water. Our body's 70%, but a lot of our body, over 90 some percent, is water. And you've all seen, you don't go barefoot in water where there's electricity because water conducts electric. And it does so in our bodies, but it's a structured water. And what is structured water? The best example I can give you is if you have a glass of structured water and a glass of regular water. If you put your finger in the regular water, comes out, no, you don't see anything, right? But structured water is the gel phase of water. It is the phase of water discovered by Dr. Gerald Pollack, University of Washington. It's like a gel. You put your finger in there. It's like putting your finger in gelatin. You imprint it. They could get your fingerprint from that. That's why frequencies entered into the body can be imprinted. And as I talked about this past Thursday about Dr. Reif and how he started imprinting, and how for the last 3 or 4 years I have been studying imprinting different objects and learning about frequencies to get rid of energy blockages and disruptions, to get our body harmonized again. So we have to drink water. Most of us are dehydrated. We don't have enough water. And as we get older, our bodies forget to tell us to drink. Okay, so we have to drink water, and we have to learn how to structure water. There's easy ways to do it. Just go on the internet, go to YouTube, look up structured water, and structure your water. Because it will be very important for you to absorb the vibrations and healing. And not only do we want to put vibrations into our body, we want to get away from Wi-Fi and routers and smart meters and smart thermostats, all these devices that emit electromagnetic fields. And I'm often reminded of taking the family down to the beach, and how we buried the kids and then they buried us in the sand, and how good we felt. Why? Because we were grounded. We were absorbing those electrons from the earth that are free and that are anti-inflammatory. Think about that. We live a life that we're always in a state of fright, anxious, moving. We're in a state of sympathetic, not parasympathetic tone. And all the electromagnetic fields that's what they do also. They put us into a state of sympathetic tone, which is inflammatory. So we have to talk about grounding, and I've done programs on grounding. Okay, so we want to. I have a friend who I gave a card imprinted with the frequencies of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. She imprinted water, gave it to her friend, who gave it to her father, who had COVID with a pulse ox of 86%. And after drinking those 2 bottles and 3 more, pulse oxygen level went up into 96% range and was able to be discharged from the hospital. So you can transfer frequencies to the water to your body, and your body knows what to do with those frequencies. And your body cannot be overdosed with them because your body just lets it go by. Contrary to medication, you can be overdosed with medication because it doesn't support your body's healing processes where frequencies will. Remember, medication just suppresses. Biology responds to frequency patterns. And water is one of the ways we transmit those frequencies into the body. So this is the alternative to the big pharma lifestyle. So either you go along with the medical paradigm or you go with the bioenergetic, the one that is more physiological, the one that really works, that doesn't just control the symptoms, gets to the cause. And it all has to do with energy and mitochondria. And frequencies can be sound frequencies. They can be the Tibetan bells. It could be the right frequencies. All vibration and energy. Every color has a frequency. That's why it's for years we've told people to eat lots of colored vegetables. They all have frequencies. And there are certain frequencies where cells are very vulnerable. For instance, in one study, a team of doctors working with cancer research attempted to destroy cancer cells with frequencies. They looked at pancreatic cancer cells, and they discovered these cells were very vulnerable when they were exposed to frequencies between 100,000 and 300,000 hertz. And they could kill 25 to 40% of these cells. So, since everything has a frequency, bacteria, viruses, cancer cells, they all can be controlled by hitting them with the exact same frequencies. You know, like years ago, Memorex, they had someone singing at a certain pitch. The frequency was high enough to make glass shatter. Same idea. Exposed to a frequency, cancer cells will shatter. They'll lose their integrity. And a lot of this has to do with our mind too. We have to, we know that we can put out vibrations from our mind. We'll get into a study done by a chiropractor of all people, Dr. Joe Dispenza. He actually shows that the telomere length can be increased by meditation. And we're continuing to develop and advance the development of bioenergetics or energy healing or energy medicine. So, what's the takeaway? Frequency imprinting is a way of treating diseases that the body knows how to handle and has been used for thousands of years. Knowing that energy exists within everything is a fundamental law of physics. And everything vibrates at specific frequencies, so your body knows how to handle these frequencies when it's exposed to it. And there are lists. You can look them up on the internet. Of every organ has a specific frequency, a specific energy frequency. And knowing this, we could treat any condition that is that a person is suffering, especially low energy. Low energy. So by doing this, we get back to what I said. We have 100 trillion cells. Those cells have millions of mitochondria. And our lifestyle, our modern lifestyle with our standard American diet, which is called SAD, and all the electromagnetic frequencies and toxins we're exposed to, they get compromised very easily. And when they don't operate as an energy engine, we get tired, we get aches, we get pains, we get digestive problems. And then a dis-ease. So this is what we talked about on an interview with Dr. Jerry Smith this past week, and I'll let you know when that is published, and it'll be on the internet and on Roku streaming television. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess I've been remiss. I just haven't talked enough about mitochondria and how important they are. Okay, but we'll talk more about it, because our cells need energy. And one of them is it has to keep repairing our DNA, so we have the right amount of protein being produced. So, frequency medicine is using devices to imprint frequencies into magnetic strips, crystals, holographic stickers, applied to the body, absorbed by the body, and regulating the body's energy fields. In trying to make it simple, I may not have covered everything properly, but it's so simple I'm having trouble putting it into words. But we have to think. I have to keep talking about it, and maybe I will get the idea across better. That if we want to survive in this toxic world that we're living in, we need something different than what we're doing, because our lifespan is decreasing, chronic diseases are increasing, children's IQs are decreasing, and we spend the most of any developed nation on medical care. And we don't talk enough about frequencies and energy and healing and toxins and poor lifestyle habits. But that's the direction I want to try and continue with this podcast. And lab testing is okay. I mean, but it only tells you at that moment when the blood is taken. And most physicians and physician assistants, I'm sorry to say, don't know how to interpret these tests, because these tests are the value is determined by taking blood from sick people, not from healthy people. And blood ranges. You might be in the range, but you might be in the lower end of the range. That doesn't mean it's normal. You don't want to be normal. If you're 70, you don't want your doctor to say, well, you're normal for 70. No, I want to be normal for a 30-year-old. I want to keep my body regenerating so I can live a healthier life as I'm aging. You want your blood work to be optimal, not just normal, because normal could be at the low end of the scale of what most sick people are. We want to be optimal. And we can improve, okay, by having a good anti-inflammatory diet, regular exercise, regular grounding, good restorative sleep, intermittent fasting, okay, and a non-petroleum based nutritional support system. And having more omega 6s, anti inflammatory, and not the trans omega 3 acids, fatty acids. Because we want to keep our cell membranes porous so it lets in oxygen and lets out all the junk. So let's try and sit quietly in a chair. Begin noticing your own body. After a few minutes, begin noticing the room around you using your peripheral vision while you're looking straight ahead. Try not to move your head, but keep it looking forward. Okay, you might want to move a little bit because we're a little curious on either side, but try and keep looking forward, straight ahead. Be aware of the room and your body. After a few minutes, place your awareness on the crown of your head, the top of your head, and notice how it feels. See if it feels open or tingly. And if you think that it feels open or tingly, you'll notice that your crown will open and let in energy. And that'll open your third eye, your pineal gland. Then go down to your solar plexus and let that feel open. Let it feel soft. And after you do this a few times, you'll actually feel the energy coming into your body. This is something that Phil Safer told us a few months ago. Meditation, how it can increase our energy. That's frequency healing. And how we can feel better. And let's drink water this week and turn off our Wi-Fi and watch using our phone up to our heads so we don't get brain cancers and acoustic neuromas. And how many people have tinnitus, however you want to say it? How many people are having balance problems? And have an attitude of gratitude and have a great holiday, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll see you next week, hopefully with a great guest that'll expound more on what I just talked about. Okay, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Hey everybody, the rhyme's finished for today. I hope you got some good wisdom for what the man had to say. If it's all about good health, he's the man you got to see. He has a lot more answers for you. So tune in next week when the doctor is in the house. Or when the doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. So if you have a pain, call the doctor. If you have a strain, call the doctor. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. Or when the doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. See you next week.